everyone, this is Speak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you. And in winding down 2025, we'll quickly talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what was overall a very bad year. Now there will be potentially spoilers here for all movies and TV series within the MCU, so just beware when going into this overall video. And you can check out my reviews of all of the 3 movies that were released this year within the channel, and I'll leave a link within the description. So yes then, in terms of 2025 for Marvel, there's no getting around it, it was a very bad year. This is where, as I mentioned, they had 3 overall releases. We had Captain America Brave New World back in February, we had Thunderbolts coming out in June, and Fantastic Four came out later in July. And sadly, all 3 films underperformed at the box office, all making less than $600 million in terms of the global markets. Now, when looking at Marvel back in their prime, that used to be the minimum output for literally any movie, especially when we refer back to Phase 3, when the MCU had an iron grip literally on all forms of entertainment. But as we've known now, the 6 years following Avengers Endgame, Phases 4 and 5 have seen the franchise struggle to hit the same critical and commercial heights. Now, of course, we were coming off Deadpool and Wolverine, which made $1.3 billion, but that was much more of an Elseworld cameo fest that lent far more reference to the other studios' comic book movies rather than the MCU, and it didn't quite feel in true kinship with the cinematic universe in its current state. Going into this year, Marvel was hoping to generate some momentum and goodwill to reinvigorate a lot of hype heading towards the 2 huge Avengers projects, Doomsday and Secret Wars, coming out in both 2026 and 2027, but sadly that hasn't proven to be the case. Now, contrary to majority opinion, having seen all 3 films, I really didn't feel that they were as bad as many people made them out. I found all 3 of them, at the very least, to be moderately entertaining. Out of them, I thought that Fantastic Four First Steps was the best, especially in its first 2/3. The same pretty much went for the Thunderbolts, even though that climax was a bit more messy. And in terms of Brave New World, for all of the pushing of the Red Hulk, I actually felt that towards its finale, that character's inclusion actually undone the film. But all 3 failures this year have further highlighted that there is a continued decline in interest and hype not only in the MCU, but also with the ever-continuing superhero fatigue in terms of entertainment, and not even the most positive fan can deny that the fatigue doesn't exist. It has been this way now for at least, I would say, 3 to 4 years. Not only within Marvel, but because Marvel has been the most prominent in terms of the superhero genre, any failure that they produce will always come under extra scrutiny. And in terms of what we had here, I think the main issue with 2025 is that it was continuing the trend of Marvel putting out stories and characters that people just weren't invested in. This was especially the case with not only Thunderbolts, but mostly so with Captain America Brave New World. Most controversy, of course, surrounding the fact that we had Sam Wilson taking over the mantle of Captain America from Steve Rogers. Now, yes, people pointed out at the time that this was true to the source material in the comics. Yes, Sam does indeed take on the mantle, but for many people, including more the general casual audience, Steve Rogers is Captain America and nobody else. Plus the fact that Sam Wilson has been established for many years in the universe as Falcon and was proven to be very likeable in the main role. So fans just weren't too excited for this, the fact that Captain America was going to be portrayed by a different character. And once more, it maintains the further debate about the race swapping of iconic white characters in the lead role, and this just pushed further negativity to the project before a trailer was even released. We look at Thunderbolts, which, again, despite the fact that I liked the first 2/3 of it, you are dealing with very much the lower tier characters who had been previous movies. We had Yelena Belova from the Black Widow films, and of course Bucky Barnes, who has been the most prominent character from that movie in the various Captain America and Avengers films also. But with other characters such as Red Guardian and the Ghost and the adjacent Captain America from the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, these are characters that just didn't warrant an individual movie. By all means, you could have them appear in the streaming services as what we had, but you can't just put them together in a movie on itself the kind of de facto Avengers was something that they pushed even further by calling them the new Avengers literally at the end of the movie, and just expect people to be still excited. Yes, by design, this was very much more the MCU version of the Suicide Squad, but as I mentioned, they just weren't characters that had enough presence or enough backstory for the mainstream audience. So it didn't really make any sense to make a complete movie surrounding around them. What also didn't help that in Century, you didn't really have a real compelling antagonist. If you could even call him an antagonist, he was much more of a flawed, tortured character who was inhibited by the power of the void. So even then, he didn't really have a outstanding villain to get audiences excited for. And then we look at Fantastic Four, which I felt was the biggest disappointment, because I genuinely felt that this being the first entry in the Phase 6 of Marvel, the fact that you are dealing with the first family of the Marvel Comics, the originators, the first real property within the superhero publisher, this was a chance to indeed take the first steps and start with a brand new slate. They made a very interesting and very favoured decision to have the characters based on a alternate Earth, very much of a retro futuristic universe that fused a lot of futuristic elements with a lot more of the 60s culture, making it much more of a period piece. And this garnered a lot of enthusiasm, and it allowed the movie to completely stand on its own without having to worry about tying to anything that was currently going on in the universe. And overall, they had cast very good actors in the role, and aesthetically, it looked very bright and colourful. We had, for the first time, really, the Thing look much more like its comic book counterparts, as opposed to the more practical effects that we saw with the Tim Story films. But of course, we had negativity, first of all, with the inclusion of Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. I said at the time I really didn't think that this was a big enough deal breaker for more casual audiences to defeat the film, and overall I felt he wasn't that bad in the role. But what brought even further negativity was, of course, the decision to have the female version of the Silver Surfer, and despite all of the arguments that Shallabal, that version was indeed part of a comic book arc, it was a gender swap any way you look at it. And for many fans, Silver Surfer is one of the most iconic characters within all of comic books. He may not be as commercially popular as, say, Spider-Man, the Hulk, or Wolverine, but most fans very much recognise the Silver Surfer as a character really potential of that more grandeur and awe within comic books. And when Marvel and Disney finally acquired the rights of the character back from Fox, we really got excited, as we potentially could have seen that really epic, sweeping space adventure of a solo Silver Surfer that the character so deserves. So it was truly disappointing to have this female version here, and again, that would have caused further antagonism towards that project. Even the inclusion of Galactus, which I have to say was done very well, a mixture of practical costume and CGI, it did look very good and impressive on screen. But at the same time, this was not the point where we should have Galactus anyway. Galactus is your next level threat up from Thanos, so if the Marvel Universe was still cooking as it was in Phase 3, we would have had the same development and build up as what we had previously with Thanos and that character. 3, 2, 1. And to have the Fantastic Four essentially defeat Galactus on their own really took away a lot of the threats and the stakes, and won't have the same impact if you indeed decide to bring Galactus back for Avengers Doomsday or indeed Secret Wars. So it's not really worth mentioning either the Disney Plus shows, as what we've seen, they have very little impact in terms of generating hype or excitement for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The more that they just produce these shows, the less that anybody shows any interest at all. So I just think 2025 was just a series of misjudged decisions, and if anything, just weeding out the last pieces of content from Phase 5 before looking to really wipe the slate clean. And ultimately, it just continued the fact that I believe the franchise is indeed in further decline and just needs to be rebooted. Now, of course, we'll be looking forward to how Avengers Doomsday performs next year. But even if that manages to be a smash at the box office, I just think now the MCU is at its real end, creatively as well as commercially, and it's probably best to go full on reboot. And 2025 sadly highlighted that fact once more. So those are your thoughts and feelings when looking back at 2025 for the MCU. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics with the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.